Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Akira Sarutobi stood on the balcony of the Hokage's office, a balcony he thought he would never have to stand on again after he passed on the title of Hokage to Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. Now, hours after the battle against the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the nine-tailed fox demon, Sarutobi had been forced to pick up the mantle of Hokage once more. As his successor was now dead, his last act as Hokage had been to seal the nine-tailed demon lord away. Sarutobi looked over his shoulder into his office where the baby that had been used for the sealing slept in its basket. "Oh Minato, why did you leave me with this? I'm too old for this." Standing before the desk of the Hokage was his former students, the legendary three, the Sannin. "We're sorry we're late, sensei," Jiraiya said sadly. His apprentice, the fourth Hokage, had died and he hadn't been here to help. The Toad Sannin was a wreck and only duty was keeping him there at this moment, his tears hidden from the world. "We came as fast as we could," Tsunade said. Her being here was something that had surprised Sarutobi. After the death of her brother Nawaki and her lover Dan, the third Hokage had thought she would never return to the Leaf Village again. Orochimaru said nothing, his serpentine eyes were looking at the baby in the cradle. "Minato used his own son," he finally said. "Yes," Sarutobi said as he sat behind the desk, his bones aching with the thoughts of what lay ahead of him now. Tsunade drifted to the cradle, a look in her eyes that her former sensei had never seen from her before. Naruto cried out and she reached in soothing him. "Shish. All is well, little one," the slug Sannin said. "Where is your apprentice, Shizune?" the third asked. Tsunade looked up. "She went to the hospital to help out while we were here." Her eyes turning once more to the baby before her. She noticed the whisker marks and her hand moved aside the blanket. Jiraiya let out a whistle startling her as he peered over her shoulder. "Minato did a hell of a job on that seal." "Yes. He used the Shika Fujin," Sarutobi said watching as the Sannin gathered around the baby. He watched them, he'd never seen them act like this before. "The Yondaime used his life to power the seal," Orochimaru said. Looking back at his former teacher he quirked an eyebrow. "What will this mean for the boy as he gets older?" Sarutobi was about to light his pipe, but a glare from Tsunade stopped him. He sighed and put it down. "Minato designed the seal to siphon off and cleanse the Kyuubi's chakra over time. By the time Naruto reaches his 18th birthday, the Kyuubi should be fully integrated and no more." Sarutobi watched as the blonde began to fuss and Tsunade picked him up and cradled him. She slowly rocked him and he calmed. He watched as Jiraiya looked at the boy. "And Kushina died in childbirth?" he asked finally. "Yes," Sarutobi said. "He has not relatives elsewhere?" Orochimaru asked, his eyes drawn to the babe in his teammate's arms. "No. Whirlpool had been destroyed. Kushina had no one left," Sarutobi said sadly. He watched as the three Sannin exchanged looks and wondered what that was about. "What has the council decided?" Orochimaru asked after several minutes of silence. Sarutobi sighed again. He was doing that a lot this night. "They are divided on the issue of Naruto." "Why?" Tsunade asked. "About what?" "Minato would want his son taken care of," Jiraiya said. "I'm surprised Rin and Kakashi aren't here demanding to take him in," the Toad Sage said. "They all caught the winds from their former sensei." "What?" Jiraiya asked. "Rin and Kakashi had a long argument about the boy. Rin was willing and wanted to honor Minato's final request that Naruto be seen as a hero." "And Hatake?" Tsunade asked, sensing her former teacher's reluctance to speak. "Kakashi Hatake wanted to Naruto. He sees him as the Kyuubi and the thing thatted his sensei." Sarutobi closed his eyes and remembered hours ago when the Kyuubi was newly dead and he'd called Minato's surviving student before him. Kakashi wanted to the boy. He'd charged up his Chidori and would have the baby in its cradle had Rin not kicked him aside. Sarutobi looked at the wall where the scorch mark was. The three Sannin saw his glance and saw the scorch mark, All three of them scowled. And the council sensei? Orochimaru asked, getting the discussion back on track. Most of the clan heads actually want to honor the fourth's dying wish. As they should. Jiraiya said with a nod of his head. Yes. But the civilian members and the head of the Uchiha clan sides with them. Sarutobi didn't mention his former teammates were of the same mind, along with Danzo. Again the three Sannin scowled at the stupidity being shown. Tsunade was comforting Naruto. She got a bottle from the nearby supplies the Hokage had gathered and prepared it with one hand, the whole time humming a tune to Naruto who was in her arms. The two male Sannin shared a look before turning back to the Hokage. What will be done with the boy? Orochimaru asked. Sarutobi sighed. Since the first choice for his adoption won't or can't, I have little choice but to put Naruto in the orphanage under his mother's maiden name. Absolutely not. All three men turned to see Tsunade cradling the boy as he was eating from the bottle hungrily. That's just begging for some of those idiots to try on him. He needs to be protected. If Iwa learns that Minato had a son, you worry about outside threats, sensei, but you're blind to the knives in the leaf. Sarutobi always tried to see the best in his villagers, but in the past several hours he'd seen the worst, and he was disappointed. He never thought he would be, but the council and the actions of Kakashi here in this office. He'd heard the shouts from civilians on the streets when he'd retrieved Naruto from next to his father after the battle. It saddened him deeply. I'm not talking about not using his mother's name, sensei. Tsunade said. But, she looked at the babe in her arms, her eyes that held anger and hurt when she'd walked in here now held a tenderness that surprised her former sensei. I wish to adopt Naruto. She said finally. But Tsunade, your travels. Sarutobi said. I will take him with me. A moving target is harder to focus on. But, alone, Sarutobi said. I'll have Shizune. Tsunade said. And me. Orochimaru said, surprising Sarutobi. And me as well. Jiraiya said. Sarutobi looked at his former student in surprise. Do you three know what you're doing? We'll learn as we go. Jiraiya said with his grin. Suheim here isn't going to give in, sensei. Besides, Orochimaru spoke up. With three Sannin raising him, and protecting him, someone would have to have a death wish to try anything. Tsunade looked at the boy in her arms. Naruto of the Sannin, she said softly, and Sarutobi felt something run up his spine at that proclamation. He watched his students looking at the babe, and he knew they had their minds set. Somehow during the time they entered the office, they already felt a bond to the child. Sarutobi wouldn't say it out loud, but he did as well. Minato's legacy. The Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the world's littlest Sannin. You indeed will be great, Naruto. Shizune was surprised when her friend and teacher showed up with the baby in her arms. She was shocked when Tsunade told her that they would be joined by Orochimaru and Jiraiya as well. I need you to gather things we'll need to little Naruto here. Tsunade told her apprentice. The fools think he's the Kyuubi and not a baby. How horrible. Shizune said. She looked at the baby and her eyes softened. He's beautiful. Tsunade smiled, her own gaze on the baby that was sleeping in her arms. You know, I was angry being summoned back to Konoha, but the moment I laid eyes on Naruto here, something in me switched. Her eyes looked up to meet the brown eyes of Shizune. I want him raised with love and care. Her eyes went to the sleeping blonde. Officially, Naruto has been adopted by all three Sannin. She said, sitting down and looking at the babe still. Naruto will have two fathers and one mother. She looked at Shizune. And an aunt. Shizune smiled and nodded. I'll get what we all need. Where can I find you? Here. I don't want to risk him on the streets too much. Orochimaru was called to the council. His brother-in-law was in the assault. Oh no, not Tan-sama. Shizune said. Yes. Jiraiya will meet us at the gate. If I know the pervert, he's either at the memorial stone, or visiting Minato's grave. Tsunade sighed. Until he becomes Chunin, Naruto-kun can't know about his mother or father. I'll tell him a bit about them when they're older, but I'll explain it's for his protection that he doesn't know until he can defend himself. Chunin. Lady Tsunade, does that mean we'll be coming back to Konoha? Shizune asked. Sadly. I would rather not put Naruto-kun near any of the idiots here, but Sensei got the three of us to agree to it before he allowed us to sign the adoption scroll. Shizune saw the adoption mark on the boy's shoulder as Tsunade adjusted the blanket around him. It bore the mark of all three Sannin. Blinking, she shook herself and went to get everything they would need on the road. Behind her, the strongest Kunoichi sat and rocked the blonde baby in her arms, a soft smile on her face, a look of love and devotion in her eyes. Tsunade and Shizune were standing at the gates and the slug Sannin was scowling at the lateness of her fellow Sannin. Where are they? They know we need to leave under cover of darkness. Sorry, Harem. Jiraiya appeared next to them. Tsunade was about to yell, but she saw the look in his eyes. Jiraiya. Minato's grave is unmarked and hidden. He said. Kushina was listed as Uzumaki and buried with the others in the tomb. He looked sadly at his blonde teammate. Even in death, they are forced to be apart. It's not fair. Tsunade knew that her fellow Sannin was a die-hard romantic. He covered it with his being a pervert, but she remembered Minato's wedding, and Jiraiya sobbing like crazy. Where's Orochimaru? Jiraiya asked. Here. The three turned to see Orochimaru walking towards them, a 4-year-old girl at his side. Orochi? Tsunade asked. This is my sister's daughter Anko Mitarashi. The three adults looked at the little girl. Her parents' word tonight, he said softly. They knew Orochimaru loved his sister Yumi, and even got along with his brother-in-law. Tsunade growled. This village continues to take. Lady Tsunade. Shizune said, looking at the child and the babe. The slug Sannin sighed and nodded. Welcome, little Anko. Elo. The child said, looking at the ground. Jiraiya chuckled. Well, ain't this the odd family? Orochimaru said nothing, and the others knew he was still in shock at hearing about his sister's death. Come on. We can get several miles between us and Konoha. Tsunade said. Orochimaru nodded and scooped up Anko. We can travel faster, little one, if I carry you for now. We'll start training you in a few years. He said. She nodded from her uncle's arms. She was still in shock hearing her parents had died because the Kyuubi stepped on them during the battle. She didn't understand everything that the old people in the circle room had talked about, but she remembered her uncle and he promised to take care of her. She knew she would be okay. Her mother always told her to trust her uncle. As they were leaping through the trees, Anko finally noticed the baby in the blonde woman's arms, and remembered the white-haired man calling them family. Does that make him my baby brother? Anko thought. The leaping from tree to tree soon lulled her to sleep, the adults keeping silent as they put Konoha behind them. The Sannin, masters of the battlefield, legends amongst the ninja communities, powerful as cages. Nothing they couldn't handle. Oh my god. Jiraiya said, staggering back from the table. Orochimaru was across the room as if he'd teleported, a sleeved arm covering his lower face. How could something so small make something so foul? The snake Sannin asked, his eyes watering. Tsunade, eyes crossed and nose scrunched, looked at Shizune. Well, what are you waiting for? Get the wet wipes and powder, stat. Shizune was frozen at the bottom of the stairs. She'd gone to get the bag from their room. The small roadside inn was empty save for them and the owner, who was in the kitchen. It had been simple. Naruto needed to be changed. What lay beneath the diaper had even the legendary three backing away in terror. Sweet Kami, what the hell did you feed him, Suheim? Jiraiya asked. The smell was beginning to wafer towards him and he was backing up. The toad sage would later swear it was a noxious cloud that Shizune would later make into a new assault jutsu. Tsunade, seeing her apprentice frozen in place, growled and grabbed the items from her and proceeded to change Naruto's diaper. Granted, she swore the things should be used to break an enemy siege, but she cleaned the boy up and after securing the new diaper she kissed the gurgling baby's belly and got a laugh. Who's my little stink bomb? Yes you are. Yes you are. Jiraiya and Orochimaru watched their teammate talk to the baby and they shared a look. Tsunade's bravest of the brave for changing that, weapon of mass destruction, and insane for talking to a baby. Little Anko the following morning found out that standing in front of a baby boy while changing his diaper without covering his manliness ended up asking to be peed on. Her shriek of indignation woke up Orochimaru and Jiraiya, who entered the room, Rasengan in Jiraiya's hand and Kusanagi in Orochimaru's. The male Sannin were blinking sleep from their eyes and looking for the threat. Tsunade was rolling on the floor laughing and little Anko standing there with pee running down her face, a total look of revulsion on her face that only someone who'd been violated like that can have. Shizune smiled and hid the camera away as she snuggled back under her blankets. Oh, little Naruto, you are going to have this family wrapped around your finger, and I'll have the blackmail, family album to prove it. The first 2 years seemed to pass quickly as Jiraiya and Orochimaru learned how to change diapers, feed Naruto with a bottle, and that he was a baby and couldn't mold chakra yet to begin the lessons both men thought he should learn. Little Anko meanwhile learned how to read and write and was starting to learn basic taijutsu from her uncle Orochi. Mama Tsunade made sure the children ate properly, and that her male teammates weren't getting into too much trouble. Shizune filled albums with photo evidence of Naruto's first time crawling, which set the Sannin into a panic when the baby was seen crawling towards a stranger at an inn. Sadly, a Tsunade packed punch, a hail of Senbon needles from Shizune, a low-level Rasengan enema version, and Orochimaru's hidden shadow snake hand, left the poor man a wreck, which Anko laughed at and asked that Uncle Orochi do it again. Naruto's first words were, "Pervert, Mama, Shizi, Orotem and Anko no." All were recorded by Shizune in the baby journal she'd bought for her little nephew that would be filled with all his first moments. Pervert. Naruto mocked as he looked at Jiraiya, his chubby little finger pointing at the white-haired Sannin who looked shocked. As did the others, but Tsunade's cheer and picking up the little blonde and kissing him for his first word. Suheim, don't encourage him. Jiraiya said as Naruto laughed and kept saying, pervert. When he got more motor functions he would add the T, but for a first word, Tsunade couldn't have been prouder. When he called Tsunade, Mama, brought a tear to the blonde Sannin's eyes and she hugged her little one and kissed his face all over. Jiraiya, you notice the change in our Harem? Orochimaru asked as they watched the slug Sannin with the baby. Jiraiya nodded. Not something I thought I'd ever see from her again after Nawaki and Dan. The pair watched as Tsunade sang softly to their little one. Jiraiya looked at his friend. When did we get so soft? What do you mean we doby? You've always been soft between the ears. Orochimaru said with a grin. Up yours Orochi Tem. Ooh. Naruto mocked and both looked over the fire in surprise to see Naruto pointing at Orochimaru with his little finger. Jiraiya laughed. That's right Naruto. Orochi Tem. Naruto would later name Shizune, Shizi, despite the brunette's attempts to get him to change, he wouldn't. Anko number was mainly due to how often the Sannin would rush off to rescue the adventurous girl and their cries of, Anko number. To the point baby Naruto took that to mean it was her name. Brat. Anko said, but the others saw that her little brother had her wrapped around his cherub finger despite their rough start of him peeing on her at the beginning. The Sannin and their family kept moving, never staying in one place more than a month at most. Jiraiya's first novel of Ika Ika Paradise was a hit around Naruto's 3rd birthday, allowing the Sannin to take the odd jobs they wanted and not what they had to in order to make ends meet. Tsunade would gamble, but with Anko and Naruto, she never bet much and mostly did it out of habit, and she continued to live up to her nickname her bastard teammates gave her when she was a teenager. The legendary Her gambling was mostly out of fun as she held Naruto in her lap and allowed him to push the buttons on the slot machines, which somehow the 3-year-old always managed to give her winnings. Anko, now 8 to Naruto's 3, was getting more training from her uncle Orochi as well as kunoichi lessons from Shizune. She's a girl and she will need to know all this. You can't make her into an ultimate ninja. She'd threatened Orochimaru and Jiraiya with a frying pan in one hand and a butcher knife in the other when she caught them trying to teach her advanced techniques she was no way ready for. The first time she tried a fire-style attack Orochimaru had shown her, she'd passed out, and the sight of a panicking Sannin in a small town hospital would forever be etched in the minds of the doctors and nurses as Orochimaru hovered over his niece's bed, fear in his eyes as he prayed to Kami to bring her out of it all right. After Anko had awakened, Orochimaru concentrated on blunted shuriken and her taijutsu, swearing he would wait till she was 11 for academy age before he worked with the ninjutsus. Shizune approved of mild genjutsus, kawarimi and the bunshin that academy student learned. She also approved of the leaf balancing chakra exercise after getting a pair of brown eyes watering and a small girl pouting at her. Life with the Sannin was rather normal for a family on the move. They took some low-ranked jobs in towns they stayed in, then move on. Things like that went on until Naruto's 5th birthday. Anko was 10 when the peaceful nomadic life of the Sannin would change. It was a cool October morning. 5-year-old Naruto was stretching outside the tent he shared with his Ka-san. Arrow 2-san's not up yet. The 5-year-old noticed. Since his 4th birthday, Father Jiraiya had started him on simple exercises. They will help you later on, Naruto. Your body needs to be in shape if you ever want to learn the skills your mother, Orochi Tem have. Sit-ups, push-ups, jogging and when the weather and location allowed, swimming. Aunt Shizi insisted I learn how to at least dog paddle. Naruto loved the water. His mom had a hard time getting him out of it once he got in. Hey Runt. Naruto turned to see his sister coming out of her and their aunt's shared tent. Like him, she was dressed for their daily morning workout. No arrow pop? Anko asked looking around. Naruto shook his head. Anko frowned and went to the tent where her uncle Orochi and Jiraiya stayed. She rapped on the tent pole. What is it? Orochimaru's voice came out. It's Anko. Is arrow pop in there? She asked. Orochimaru's head popped out the flap. He had half face of shaving cream with his hair tied back in a topknot. No, he isn't, Orochimaru said, his gaze taking in the camp. Stepping out in his pants and a towel over his shoulder, he wiped his face. Naruto, go wake your mother. Anko, get Shizune up. The snake Sannin said. What's wrong, uncle? Anko asked. Jiraiya may be a pervert, and lazy at times, but he would never leave the camp, especially with the two of you expecting him. Orochimaru said, grabbing a shirt from his tent and grabbing his weapons pouch and sword. The Sannin never left the children unsupervised for training, and they never left the camp unprotected like it was now. Orochi, Tsunade asked coming out of her tent with her dressing gown as she tied the sash. The dobi's missing, Orochimaru said. I'm going to look for him. I didn't want to leave the camp without someone here for the children. Tsunade nodded. If he's off peeping somewhere, I am going to show him my newest detriment to perverts everywhere. Orochimaru nearly smiled. I would agree, but Jiraiya is never irresponsible when it comes to the children. If we were both out here he might be, but when he's supposed to be training them, he's actually a responsible adult, and when in Kami's name did that happen? The snake Sannin thought as he slipped from their simple camp by the river, his eyes looking for any sign of Jiraiya's passing, or someone that didn't belong there. Orochimaru was 100 yards away from the camp when the net trap scooped him up. He felt weak and saw it was designed to sap chakra. Oh, no, Suheim, protect, darkness claimed him. Tsunade glared at the path that had been left unguarded out of their campsite. She smiled proudly as she remembered the children setting the traps that even Jiraiya and his toads had been unable to find. My little Naru-chan is becoming a first-rate trap maker and he's not even 6. Tsunade thought proudly. And Anko is going to knock Konoha's socks off whenever we return. She saw Anko as a daughter and the young girl, while blood related to Orochimaru, was loved by all three Sannin as much as Naruto. We never favor one over the other, and they are protective of each other as siblings. She thought, remembering the last trading town they'd been in, and Anko had been bullied by some of the 16-year-old girls when she had entered a store looking for kunai and some chemical compounds to make her smoke bombs. Little Naruto had been at the door with Shizune and heard the girl mocking his Nei-san. Flashback. What? You think you're going to be some kind of ninja. Don't you have to be part of a ninja village? One of the 17-year-old girls snarked. And look at those clothes. She dresses like a boy, but then, she is rather flat-chested. You leave my sister alone, you trolls. Naruto roared. He knew Anko was self-conscious about her body. She's only 10, but being around Ka-san and Aunt Shizune, the little blonde thought as he tossed a tag he'd smuggled out Jiraiya 2-san's bag at the girls. One of them, seeing the sizzling tag, screamed and they scattered. Naruto smiled and looked at his sister, who was glaring at him. I could have handled that myself, brat. Shizune was the only one other than the shop owner to witness the two siblings arguing, neither one paying any attention to the active exploding note. Tsunade had been entering a bar when the explosion happened. Naru-chan. Anko. She was gone. The dust cloud was her only passing as she made it across town to see a surprised Shizune sitting on the ground holding a still squabbling pair of children. Her apprentice told her of what happened and Tsunade sighed before going to pay the store owner for damages. End flashback. Now she had the pair working on homework with Shizune, while her eyes kept watch for her absent teammates. What is keeping them? She thought. I don't like this. We're too exposed. She muttered. Hey Orochi-tem, you got caught too. Jiraiya said from his own cage. His hands were bound along with his fingers. Orochimaru glared as his head wasing him. Pervert. Not so loud. They haven't been here since dropping your pail off. Jiraiya said. It's not them I care about. My skull feels like it did that night the three of us went out after Dan's funeral. He saw Jiraiya's look and the smile forming. Pervert. Focus. Whatever you say, Tem. I was just remembering Tsunade throwing us both out in our underwear just as that group of missionaries were walking past the hotel. Orochimaru groaned, and that didn't help his aching head. Why in Kami's name were you ever given the ability of speech? You're like one of Sarutobi-sensei's trained monkeys. Jiraiya scowled. No, I take that back. Orochimaru said, and Jiraiya started to smile, thinking his teammate was done with the insults. I need to apologize to the Monkey King for insulting his subject by comparing them to you. Hey. Orochimaru took in his surroundings. His hands were bound like Jiraiya's and he found he couldn't bring his arms close enough to his face to try and bite the bindings. Fools don't know who they have apparently, or they would have gagged me. Orochimaru thought. Hey, Tem, were Suheim and the kids alright? Jiraiya asked. When I last saw them, they were fine, Dobi. How did they catch you? Orochimaru asked. Jiraiya sighed. I had some time before Naruto would have been up, and I decided to go upstream and look for a way to cross with the kids safely. Orochimaru nodded. The Sannin went out of their way to protect the kids, even if they could have summoned a toad, slug or snake to cross. They felt the learning to forage was a better experience for the children to pick up until they learned proper techniques to walk on water or climb cliffs with chakra. Well, I thought I'd found a safe spot when I was pulled under into the mud and swarmed. I woke up here. Orochimaru explained his own capture. Who are they? He wondered out loud. Not sure. They aren't wearing any kind of identification and all are wearing full masks and armor when I have gotten them. Nothing to identify with any village. Jiraiya said. Orochimaru might have teased his friend and teammate by saying he was Dobi, but Jiraiya was great at attention and detail. He plays the fool to the hilt and everyone always overlooked him. If I hadn't seen him away from Saru-sensei, I never would have known. Flashback. Orochimaru had been upset over not getting a difficult A-ranked ninjutsu right under Sarutobi's watchful eyes and had stormed off. He'd walked the village rooftops and sulked. It was then at an abandoned training ground near the south wall that he'd found Jiraiya. The man looked a mess. Orochimaru was about to comment from his tree when he watched as Jiraiya went through the same seals he'd been shown and the jutsu exploded. Damn, again too much again. Sigh, just once I wish sensei would spend time with me on something like this. Orochimaru watched his teammate, the one he'd called Dobi, and dead last, since their time in the academy, as Jiraiya had come to Konoha from a small farming village to the south near the border, while Orochimaru's father was on the council and he was a prodigy. How is this possible? The genin thought watching his teammate. He saw that while Jiraiya had never really gotten the proper attention, he worked harder. He's figured out. Orochimaru watched him until he passed out from chakra exhaustion, and then watched over him all night as Jiraiya slept. Orochimaru learned that while Jiraiya might not have come from a clan or gotten jutsus easily, once he got them, he could reinvent them and alter them, and he'd done that with the mud jutsu that their sensei had only shown him, and Jiraiya had witnessed Orochimaru spending the day trying to master. That one moment had changed his opinion of Jiraiya. He'd still verbally sparred, but there was respect there now, and they both learned to enjoy it. End flashback. Tem. Sorry Dobi. Lost in thought. About what? How to look more feminine than Suheim? Jiraiya asked with a giggle. No arrow baka. He sighed. Can you fit your hands through the bars? Maybe. Hold on. Tsunade jerked her head when the first trap went off. The smoke tags. Shizune. Her apprentice moved, getting both Anko and Naruto into the tent. Tsunade was in motion and her fist connected with the first figure that had rushed through the smoke into the camp. She spun, sensing another one, and her foot sent the second one flying. However, it cost her as she felt a Sanbon needle hit her in a pressure point and her muscles went slack and she slumped to the ground, unable to move, or even speak. No, the children. Shizune. She felt a tag put to her head. Sleep, Sannin. No. No. Naru-chan. Darkness took her as the sleep tag put her out. Hurry up, Orochi Tem. Jiraiya said as he watched the tongue of his friend holding a pick and working the lock. It's not as easy as you think. Orochimaru said around his elongated tongue. He'd managed to get the pick he'd hidden in his belt itself and was now trying to pick Jiraiya's lock since he could get at the toad Sannin's because it was a better angle than his own bound hands. Yuck. I really don't want to know what just touched my hand. Fuck you, her haha. Click. Oh yeah. Jiraiya slid out of the cuffs and brought his hands up and worked the bindings around his hands and fingers. Orochimaru retracted his tongue and spit the pick into his lap. After cracking his jaw back into shape, spitting out a foul taste and rolling his tongue, he looked at Jiraiya. Hurry up, Dobi. I've seen Inuzuka pups who can do better 5 minutes after being born. Hold your girdle. Jiraiya said and smiled once his hands were free. We're almost out of this. Yes, but while you're patting your fat in the back, who knows what they are going to try to do to Tsunade and the children. Jiraiya's efforts doubled at that and he spat out a hunk of leather binding. They touch the kids and there won't be anything left of them. Agreed. Jiraiya's bindings came loose and he tore apart the ones around his ankles and then looked at his cage. Screw it. Being quiet gets me nowhere. He formed his hand. Take notes, Tem. This is one of the best attacks Minato ever made. The swirling chakra sphere formed and he reared back. Rasengan. Sadly, the cage never stood a chance as Jiraiya went straight through and hit Orochimaru's cage as well. The smoke cleared, but Jiraiya was already cutting the bindings. Once they were off, the two Sannin were on their feet. Pounding feet could be heard. We don't have time. Orochimaru put an arm out to stop him. My turn. The door opened and the black-covered ninja walked right into Orochimaru's attack. Acid cloud. He spat the noxious green cloud and as it hit and passed there wasn't anything but melting piles of bone. Why didn't you use that before? Jiraiya asked as they ran out into the obviously deserted camp. It's a wide-range attack. Orochimaru said, then smirked. Of course, if you want I can send you to the Shinigami early. Jiraiya snorted. In your dreams, Tem. You really want to know what I dream about at a time like this? Jiraiya shuddered as they figured out which way they needed to go and were rushing along the river, trying to get upstream in time. The explosion shook the ground a mile away from camp and both Sannin froze as they felt a wave of intent. It's not possible. Orochimaru said as he stumbled, kept his footing then returned to an outright run. Naruto watched as the strangers with black outfits and silver devil masks entered the camp and took out his Ka-san. Naruto, Anko, stay here. Shizune ordered and they watched as she pulled her sleeve up revealing the Sanbon launchers. Anko loved the weapon their aunt made. The figures turned towards them and advanced, still not making a sound. Stay back, Shizune warned. The attackers kept coming, one of them pulling a curved sword. Shizune wasted not time as she sent a hail of poison-covered needles flying at the attackers. The one with the weird sword swatted them aside. Shizune was right behind it and her scalpels tearing into the person's armor, before she flipped backwards to avoid the reverse swing of the curved sword. Anko and Naruto both stood back, the kunai in their hands. We need to help, little Naruto said, his blue eyes wide as they went to the still form of their mother. Anko slapped a hand on his shoulder. Aunt Shizune said we need to stay here. Blue eyes looked up at her in disbelief. Both children turned hearing Shizune scream and watched her fall. Aunt Shizi, Naruto yelled, and again Anko's hand kept him in place. Don't, she said, her hand tightening on the kunai in her other hand. The strange nin approached again. Naruto felt fear, not for himself, but for his mother and aunt. Anko snarled and lunged as the masked nin got within range. A black-gloved hand caught her wrist and she dangled in the air, her legs flailing about as she tried to hit the man that hurt her adopted mother and aunt. Let me go so I can you. She struggled to break free, managing to pull herself up and sink her teeth into the gloved hand that held her. Ah! The man snarled and backhanded her hard, sending her several feet away where she lay not moving. Nei-san! Naruto screamed. He rushed to his sister's side and saw her unresponsive. He cried as he heard the man chuckle. No, Kyuubi, has being a human weakened you so? The voice was deep, inhuman sounding. I am Naruto, not the dumb fox. Naruto said. As soon as he was old enough to understand words, his mother had sat him down and with Jiraiya and Orochimaru explained to him the night the Kyuubi had been sealed. They said he was the jailer, not the prisoner. And if you want him, you can't have him. The masked man chuckled again. And why is that? Because my dad was a seal master, and if you try and remove the fox, it will not only me, but the fox will die as well. Impossible, the masked man said as he motioned the others behind him to hold steady. Your father was a fool. No one can a demon lord. Yeah, well, no one could seal one or stop one on a rampage either, and my real dad did that. He's lying, my lord, a nin said. The silver-masked figure slipped the curved sword away and approached Naruto. Naruto swung and kicked as the man picked him up by the back of his shirt and had him dangling. The man reached out and Naruto smacked the hand away. He got slapped hard. Don't make this more difficult, boy. He ripped Naruto's shirt. Naruto watched as the man's hand was engulfed in red chakra and placed it over his belly. The seal appeared. Crude. Naruto used a word he heard his mother say once. Uteme. The masked man laughed. My lord, we lost contact with the base. A nin reported. It seems the Sannin live up to their reputation. The masked man said. Naruto, while the man was distracted, pulled out his kunai and rammed it into the man's wrist. Naruto fell to the ground as the strange man clutched his wounded arm to him. Kill the women, bag the boy, he said, stepping back. Kill. Naruto felt a white-hot rage overcome him at the thought of his mother, sister and aunt being hurt. One of the ninja wearing his katana at his side reached for him and in explosion of power Naruto was in motion, red chakra engulfing him as he snatched the sword and in a single motion cut the ninja in half. What? The man said, watching as one of his men fell to the boy. Kyuubi. He inquired and saw the boy's eyes were pulsing with red energy. He moves like a seasoned swordsman. But, who is in control? Naruto shimmered and appeared before a nin that was about to stab Tsunade. The nin looked shocked as Naruto speared him on the stolen katana up from the groin. The masked leader grabbed Anko and held a dagger to her neck. Hold it, boy, he said, watched a third of his men fall, leaving himself and one other. The red vortex of power around the boy kept flaring, but the boy stopped moving. Who are you? Naruto. Came the deep voice. I don't think so. The masked man said. He felt two powerful chakra signatures coming closer. Blast! I don't have time for this. I'm letting the girl go, and me and my servant will leave you for now. Who are you? Naruto asked. An old friend of the Kyuubi's. If you talk to the fox, tell him Nada says hello. The masked man shoved Anko towards Naruto. He took a moment to see if the girl would be harmed and watched as the chakra around the boy vanished and he dropped the katana and caught the girl, falling under her weight taking them both to the ground. Let's go. Nada's ordered and they vanished in black wisps of smoke just as Jiraiya and Orochimaru reached the camp. Shit. Jiraiya said as he and Orochimaru saw the nin vanish. They saw Tsunade, Shizune and Anko, but no Naruto. Naruto. Jiraiya called. There. Orochimaru said noticing movement under Anko. The snake Sannin was at his niece's side and rolled her off Naruto who looked dazed, but unharmed. Naruto. Jiraiya asked dropping to his knees. I'm okay. Naruto said. Aunt Shizi was hurt, she screamed, and stay here with Orochi and Anko, I'll check on Shizune and Tsunade. Jiraiya said and rushed to the women's side. Naruto say up and looked at Orochimaru. Is Anko Ne-chan alright? Orochimaru nodded. She just got knocked out. He said tracing a hand over the bruised cheek of his niece. Who did this? He called him Nada's. He said he was a friend of the fox. Orochimaru put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Are you okay? The snake Sannin asked. Naruto nodded. Uncle, he said hesitating. Yes. Orochimaru took the role of uncle and the children called Jiraiya father or as Anko and Naruto really called him Arrow Pop. The fox. Naruto looked at him, his big eyes shining. Something's wrong, he said, his hand going to his stomach. What do you mean Naru-kun? He asked the young blonde. When Nada's. When he ordered his men to Anko Ne-chan, Ka-san and Aunt Shizi. Naruto lowered his chin to his chest and was talking so low that even Orochimaru's hearing couldn't make it out. Reaching out a hand he raised the boy's head up. Now, what was that? Your mother told you never to be afraid to tell us anything Naru-kun. He said giving him a soft smile to encourage the boy. He said I was the Kyuubi, and when I felt mad, it wasn't my own anger, I was too afraid. Orochimaru pulled Naruto into a hug. The bad snake Sannin hugged the little blonde boy that had become family to him as much as his niece in his lap. Can't breath. Both sprang apart to see Anko awake. Hey little serpent. Orochimaru said. You got tagged pretty good. Jiraiya checked on Shizune, and while she was wounded it wasn't bad. He saw it was a shallow cut. The sleep tag on the back of her neck he ripped off and she opened her eyes right away. Naruto. Anko. She said sitting up with a wince, her hand going to the slice across her belly. Both are fine if not a little roughed up. Jiraiya assured her. Heal yourself and go check. I'll get Suheim. The toad sage had been relieved that Shizune was alright. He got to Tsunade and saw a Senbon needle in her neck and he panicked when he pulled the tag off her and she didn't move, her eyes stared lifelessly ahead. Shizune. He yelled and the apprentice was there. I pulled the tag off, but he was panicking. Jiraiya. Orochimaru said with the children. Stay back. Jiraiya called out. Keep the kids back. Mom. Naruto yelled and only Orochimaru picking him up kept the blonde from running to his mother's side. Oh sweet Kami, no, not like this. Jiraiya muttered as Shizune ran a diagnostic. The Sannin's return to Konoha was like they left, under the cover of darkness. Anko was not impressed. The now 12-year-old glared at the villagers that saw them, and once they saw Naruto's whiskers they would glare at her little brother. They entered the Hokage Tower, Tsunade carrying Naruto now after a villager hit him. Said villager will forever be eating food through an IV and using adult diapers to go to the bathroom after the three Sannin had destroyed the idiot while Anko and Shizune comforted the blonde who sported a red slap imprint. Anbu in the tower got out of the Sannin's way rather quickly. It could have been the look on their faces, it could have been Sarutobi left strict orders that his former students were allowed access without restrictions. We'll go with the option of the amount of intent emitting from Tsunade as she stormed up the stairs, the blonde in her arms with the others a step behind her. You can't, is as far as the secretary got in trying to stop the Sannin from entering the office before Tsunade's kick totally disintegrated the door and she continued on without slowing. Akira Sarutobi sighed, looking from the ruined door pieces on his desk to the door as Tsunade strode in. Hello Tsunade. And Naruto, you've grown since I've last seen you. Tsunade's growl caused him to pause. I don't think we're going to be staying here, sensei. Sarutobi blinked. What? Why? Orochimaru entered with Anko. Simply because several villagers tried to harm Naru-kun the moment we entered, mistaking him for the Kyuubi. Sarutobi looked at the two children in panic and saw Anko glaring at him while she rubbed a hand up and down her brother's back. You told them. Of course we told them. Tsunade said as she continued to hold Naruto. I will not lie to my son. Keeping him ignorant of what he holds would have been foolish. Jiraiya entered last. He created a repair seal and the door returned to its position and he locked it. Your villagers are gathering out there. They want to some demon. He looked at his sensei and the third saw there was no humor on his third student's face. Jiraiya was serious and pissed. If this is how the village treats him after all these years, then Sarutobi sensei, I am afraid we shall withdraw from here, and raise our children elsewhere. Tsunade said. Orochimaru placed a hand on Anko's shoulder. We had believed that with all the years away things would have died down. His prodigal student looked at him seeking answers for the unasked questions. Sarutobi sighed and he felt his years weighing on him. The council spread the word that you three took Naruto away. They also passed on what he contained. I made a law forbidding the knowledge of being spoken Naruto's generation. Sadly, many people don't see him as the jailer, but as what he holds. Fools. Jiraiya said. They can't even honor Minato's wish. Sarutobi lowered his eyes. Kakashi has been very vocal in my discussions with him. He still believes that Naruto. He looked at the boy, blue eyes looking at him. We're leaving. Tsunade said. I will not raise him in a hostile environment. We were better off in Suna. Hell, even Iwa treated him fairly. Orochimaru remembered their time in Iwa. Jiraiya had been on pins and needles worried that an Iwa nin would notice the resemblance to Minato, but none of them did. The Cage of Iwa had been pleased to have the legendary Sannin working for him for a time, and the three Sannin watched as Naruto wrapped the man around his fingers. When they left, Naruto had been offered a place in the academy, and the cage had left a scroll of low-level jutsus for him to learn. Anko too had made friends in their time there, and the Sannin had nearly accepted settling there. Suna had been an adventure. Jiraiya found the cage's son's seal on their second day there when the boy had tried to them. After the fixing of the seal, and the boy, Gaara, had been allowed to sleep, he and Naruto had become best friends and for 2 months had been inseparable. Naruto had sent letters back and forth with the cage's youngest since they'd left. You don't mean that, Sarutobi said, panic setting in with the thought of the Sannin joining another village. No, Tsunade said and Sarutobi relaxed. She shot Orochimaru a look and the dark-haired Sannin nodded. In our travels we've rescued many nin and civilians. We set up a hidden village, and we'd talked about if things didn't work out here, we'd head there. Sarutobi looked panicked now. What do you mean? You've helped make a hidden village. None of our reports have even hinted at one. The three Sannin exchanged a look. It wouldn't be hidden if everyone knew about it. We have let the court of lords know. Jiraiya said from near the door. Sarutobi was shocked. Our children will not be raised surrounded by hatred, sensei. Tsunade said, her eyes drifting towards Naruto and Anko. It was apparent the moment we walked in the gate, Naruto will never be accepted here. Sarutobi was going to respond when the door opened. Jiraiya moved further into the room as 3 members of the council backed by Root Anbu entered the room. Good. You brought it. The first member of the council spoke. Hand the demon over and we shall dispose of it. Tsunade put Naruto down next to Anko. You lose your mind with your arm, Danzo? She asked. Tsunade, you will learn your place. The council has ordered the death of the Kyuubi to protect Konoha. The fools. Jiraiya butted in. You see the contents of a bowl and not the ramen inside. Sannin, stand down, and allow the demon to be taken. Orochimaru drew, grass cutter, and stepped in front of the children. I don't think so. Naruto is family, and I will the man or woman who touches him. And all the second. Jiraiya said, a Rasengan in each hand, his eyes showing a seriousness they only saw on the face of the third Hokage. And I'll crush the council with my bare hands. Tsunade said, cracking her knuckles. It was then that Sarutobi realized someone was missing. Shizune, he thought. Said Kunoichi appeared behind Danzo, the chakra scalpel in her hand pressed to his neck. But know this, Councilman Danzo, it won't matter who starts it, you'll die first if you think I'll let you anywhere near that precious little boy who calls me his aunt. The room was tense. Sarutobi was trying to figure out how to salvage this and keep the Sannin loyal to Konoha, and Naruto out of the council's control. There was no way he could see that wouldn't end in disaster. Fools! Doing this they will ensure the Sannin turn on Konoha. Kill me, girl, and there will be no place in the world for you to hide. Danzo said, but he wisely didn't move. The root Anbu with them tensed, their precious leader was in danger, and they knew they couldn't get to her before she slit his throat. That and the three Sannin in the room would tear them apart like tissue paper. Sarutobi, have your students stand down this instant. Homura said, looking at the Hokage. Orochimaru snorted. The council members have gotten very bold, ordering the Hokage about. He looked at his sensei. They forget who is the power in Konoha. They are there to make your job easier, not to rule. Sarutobi sighed. He'd allowed things to go on like this for too long, and now the council had consolidated power enough to rival his in control of the city. Uncle, Naruto said. The Sannin looked at the blonde boy and smiled. Yes, Naruto. Are these men like those that we met before? Orochimaru paused. Yes and no. Yes, they are fools. No, they aren't a threat. He finally said, his eyes turned towards the councilman and root Anbu. And if they try to harm you, remember what we taught you in Anko. Naruto nodded, and the council members watched as the boy and the teenage girl pulled out a pair of kunai. Remember, they come at you. Orochimaru said. Tsunade tensed. Now, how is this going to play out? Homura and Kaharu exchanged looks. It was Danzo that made the day worse. Sarutobi's palm strike connected, and he wished that the day wouldn't have been like this. He made a decision and he would live with it for the rest of his life. The root Anbu collapsed as the professor entered the battle on the side of his students. When one got close to the children, the third Hokage's intent stopped the battle cold as his kick sent the idiot out the window. Anbu! He roared, and a dozen Anbu appeared. Seize all root members, arrest Councilman Danzo, along with Homura and Kaharu here. I want all members of the council in chamber in half an hour. Those that resist will be considered brought up on treason and executed. Sarutobi looked at his three students, his eyes softened seeing Tsunade on her knees in front of Naruto, checking for any wounds. Finding none, she pulled him into a bone-crushing hug. Ka-san. Air. The blonde said as Anko next to him was chuckling until Orochimaru did the exact same thing. I'm too old for this. Anko roared, but Sarutobi noted that she wasn't putting up a struggle. His gaze went to Jiraiya, who looked at the Tsunade, and Orochimaru, who nodded, and he turned his attention back to the floor where Homura was under his foot. They check the children and will do anything to protect them first and foremost. Now you old fossil, you threatened our children. You and the old farts like you have a grudge against a child that has never done you wrong. His father sealed the nine-tail into him to save this village, but I can tell you right now Minato would regret his sacrifice seeing how you bastards act. Both Sarutobi and the downed council members' eyes widened as Jiraiya spoke openly about the nine tall and the boy's parentage. Sarutobi looked to see the boy's reaction, but saw none. They told him what happened that night, who his parents were, but. Ero-2-san, what did Uncle Orochi tell you about playing with stupid people? Naruto asked from Tsunade's arms. He calls them mom, dad and uncle. Sarutobi thought, watching things unfold. Jiraiya smiles at the boy. Not to play around with people dumber than myself, as they might get lucky. Orochimaru snorted. Dobi, there aren't people dumber than you. Up yours, Orochi Tem. Jiraiya said, putting more pressure on the elder's chest. I'm trying to think of one reason not to take a Rasengan to you and put you in your place 6 feet under. Sarutobi coughed. All 3 Sannin looked at him. I would prefer that you don't them unnecessarily. I need to find out how far this power play goes. Jiraiya snorted. The damn council. Tsunade stood, the blonde boy in her arms. We're leaving. Shizune. I'm okay, Lady Tsunade. I'm sorry Danzo got away. Tsunade waved it off. He's a cockroach. The man can be at ground zero of the Kyuubi rampage and only get a scratch. It's not your fault. Orochimaru looked at Sarutobi. We shall be leaving Konoha, and from this day forth, we shall not be allied with it. Sarutobi watched as all 3 Sannin removed their leaf hitai and placed them on the desk. Shizune never had been a ninja of Konoha and she followed the Sannin from the office. Sarutobi winced. He'd read the doctored reports that Danzo and his root had made. They claimed that they'd found experiments in Orochimaru's labs under the Sannin's home. Sarutobi had laughed and told them that the Sannin haven't been in Konoha for some time. He then had Ibiki search and mysteriously several wealthy people fled Konoha. The Yakushi clan being amongst them. Sarutobi should never have allowed the council to gain the amount of power he had, and now if he ever wanted the Sannin to return, he would have to clean it all up. Everything over the last several years. I hate this job. Sarutobi as he watched the legendary 3 walk from his office, their strange tight-knit little family with them, they never looked back. Tsunade held Naruto as they passed the market town, never once slowing down. She was pissed beyond reason that the old bastards would try that. Ka-san, Naruto said softly, drawing her gaze enough to know that she was listening. Are we ever going back to Konoha? He asked. No, she said. We'll take up residence in that little village we set up in Rice. Your uncle will be Kage. A snort from Jiraiya earned him a slap on the back of the head from Orochimaru, who had Anko on his back. Stow it, Dobi. Unless you want to be Hokage. Jiraiya's eyes widened. Ah, hell no. I hate the sheer thought of all that paperwork. Shizune was quiet. But, what will we call the village? The Hidden Sound. Orochimaru said. We've found several nomadic ninja and samurai, along with villagers who want something better. Naruto looked at Orochimaru, who continued as they raced further away from Konoha. Many people do not like many of the rules and laws that the ruling families in many villages pass to support themselves. We set up this new village so that no law favors anyone. The Hokage of the Sound will be the one and only law. There will be no council. Ninja will be trained. No favoritism like there has been in Konoha and several of the other villages we passed through over the years. Naruto was thinking. It was Anko who spoke. Who's going to teach? She asked. While Tsunade and Shizune set up the hospital, and I run the Kage's office, Arobaka there will be helping with the academy. Both children smiled at the look on Jiraiya's face. Me. I can't teach. Only until we have more stable ninja force. Tsunade said. Many of the ninja we've talked to that are missing nin are those that were betrayed and fled or were disillusioned with the system. I'm sure that we'll find a suitable teacher amongst them. Jiraiya snorted. Or freaks. What's he mean by that, Ka-san? Naruto asked. Tsunade sighed. He means people that are a stranger than him. Naruto's eyes got wide. Is that possible? That brought a laugh to the group as they continued to flee. They passed through the Valley of the End and out of Fire Country, not to be seen there for many years to come. Konoha. No trace of them, Lord Hokage. Inu masked Anbu reported. What happened? Sarutobi sighed. Danzo and his conspirators made a power play and it backfired. The Sannin have abandoned Konoha, with the daimyo's permission. He sighed. They along with Naruto have left our country and are going to make a new hidden village. The ANBU's body language screamed disbelief. Danzo and his root tried to the adopted son of the Sannin. They took it like any parent would. Inu sighed. We've captured 47 members of Root. However, Danzo has yet to be found along with 4 members of his inner circle. Sarutobi cursed under his breath. Put the word out. Danzo and his root are to be captured or on sight. Anything else We lost sight of missing Nin, Rin, and Izuka. The masked ninja said, his words hesitant as if it hurt to say them. Where? Near the border. The Chunins that saw her were knocked out, no injuries like every other encounter. Inu said. The Hokage sighed. Dismissed. This is not good. Danzo's out there with 4 of his best operatives. We've lost 3 cage-level warriors due to the stupidity of the council, and Minato's 3rd student still hasn't been brought in. He pulled out his pipe and puffed on it. I am not looking forward to the Council of Cages in 3 weeks. Unknown mountain range. Report. A deep voice reported. Nada stepped from the shadows and went to a knee. I was unable to retrieve the Kyuubi, my master. It is bound to the mortal child by some seal on his belly. The figure made of shadow and smoke snarled. Then bring me the child. The barrier must fall. I am doing what I can, master, but I lost them after my encounter. It's like the boy knows how to mask his signature. Then find the other 8. I will send my emissary when you have the other 8. Should I confront the Kyuubi container again, master? Nada's asked. No. Leave it free for now. Allow it to grow in power. It will make taking over this realm so much more sweet. What of the elder gods? Nada's asked. They know nothing for now. We must be careful. The last thing we need is for one of them to become involved. The shadow form shifted. For now, leave the Kyuubi child free. When the time comes, we shall take him and crush him. By your command. Nada said on his knees, his head down. I will send you soul collectors. You will use them to harvest the other 8. Do not fail me in this, Nada's. Naruto's 13th birthday was a sight to behold. All of Odo had been invited to the top rookie's birthday bonanza. Odo Kage Orochimaru smiled at his nephew as village-wide games were taking place, from simple events that civilians could partake in, to challenges that even tested the greatest jonin amongst them. Odogakur had grown over the last several years. The village was hidden underground, beneath a small farming village that was nestled in a valley that was very difficult to get to unless you knew the safe paths. Anko was thriving in Odo as well. She made jonin right before her 18th birthday and told the family in no uncertain terms she was going to be Naruto's jonin instructor, and she'd hamstring any other candidates. Over the past couple years since leaving Konoha for the 2nd time, there had been several attempts on Naruto's life by mercenaries hired by Danzo secretly, and the Sannin felt it was allowed by the Council of Konoha behind their former teacher's back, so they blamed the village hidden in the leaves even more. Jiraiya's first year as a teacher had gone surprisingly smooth, after Tsunade had to beat him for hitting on the older students. The hospital was the best ever, and Shizune and Tsunade smiled as Orochimaru took their advice and made sure that the teams all had basic medical training and there was one qualified medic on each team. Naruto's ninja career had been difficult at first as he was not used to sharing the attention of his family, but after some discussing with his Ka-san and sister, he soon got over it. Meaning they caught him pouting and put him to the grindstone of Tsunade's training course that left Jiraiya a gelatin pool on the floor, and a spar with Anko, that while Naruto had done well, showed that his sister was a mite unstable. Unstable was Naruto's way of saying his sister was slightly insane. And who would blame her? It happened on Anko's 15th birthday. Flashback. Come on. Naruto shouted to his sister as they raced around the forest around Odo's farmlands. The pair had snuck out and were playing a game of tag, with kunai. The blonde youth smiled as they enjoyed this. It was not only a game for them, but a training exercise. One would chase the other with kunai and shuriken, till they got tagged, meaning one of the sharp instruments was lodged in them, then they would heal up, and then the other would begin the chase. They never did this around their mother or aunt. They knew the fireworks would make what arrow pop did seem tame. You brat, Anko said, sending a volley. All missed, but left a nice outline in the tree where Naruto had been. I'll get you, Naru-chan. Anko yelled. You couldn't catch a man if you had Anko-chan. Naruto yelled back and dove towards the ground, avoiding the shuriken barrage that would have engulfed his head. He laughed and looked over his shoulder to find his sister when he slammed into something, or more to the point, someone. He looked up. Hello. The silver-haired man who we'll call Elder Yakushi reached down and grabbed a handful of Naruto's shirt and hoisted him into the air. Well, look we have here. We escaped Konoha for our medical experiments and we still managed to run into the damn demon brat. Auto, a boy Anko's age said adjusting his glasses. Shouldn't we let him go? Let him go. Kabuto, you are as weak-willed as your mother was, the man said. We him and present him to the mysterious Odo cage and we'll ensure our place in the Sound Village. Let my brother go. Anko yelled descending from above, her kick connected with the man's head, sending him flying and he dropped Naruto. Anko, run. Get uncle an arrow pop. Naruto said as he tackled another elder. Anko was caught from behind. The boy Kabuto kicked one. Let them go. She's wearing a sound headband. He was backhanded for his efforts from his own father. He rolled. Naruto looked at him. Get help. The farm nearby. Tell Chi-Chi-sama. Kabuto raced off. His mother's dying words had been for him not to end up like his father, but he'd been dragged along when they fled Konoha for his elders having been caught experimenting on civilians and ninja alike. He knew his father hated her, and he wanted to be part of a new village. He wanted to feel safe. His legs pushed him on. Naruto was bound and gagged as the Yakushi men held Anko. Well, look at what we got here. Aren't you a sweet little thing? The elder said as he stroked her cheek. Anko spit at him which caused him to backhand her. Spirited. What do you say, brothers? We have a taste of this young thing before we as a demon. The other two men chuckled and nodded their consent. Anko struggled and tried to fight them off as her clothes were ripped away from her. Orochimaru, Jiraiya and Tsunade with young Kabuto found and gore-covered Anko sobbing while rocking an unconscious Naruto. The remains of the Yakushi men were littering the clearing. Naruto had not a drop or mark on him. By Anko's leg were a pair of blood-soaked kunai, and as they got closer they heard her humming. Her eyes weren't tear-filled as they thought, they were glazed over. End flashback. Naruto and Anko never spoke of it, but their bonds as siblings were tighter, and the other one was never far from the other. They both took to their training like crazy, surpassing every expectation. Back to Naruto's 13th birthday. Friends. Orochimaru said, quieting the gathered people, nearly everyone in the village, we are gathered here today to celebrate the 13th birthday of my nephew Naruto here. Cheers rang out as well as yells of, Happy birthday, Naru-kun. Causing the blonde to blush. Many of the girls his age in the academy thought the whisker marks were exotic, and his slender build had many of them chasing him. Not that they could get close with Anko on the lookout for cheap hussies as she called them, but Naruto did have several friends his age. Yes, happy birthday indeed. Now as Otokage, I need to speak on some things, and I beg Naruto-kun's forgiveness for speaking about serious things on a day that should be filled with happiness. Blue eyes looked up into the serpent-like eyes and a fox-like grin told the cage that it was fine. I want to thank our allies and friends from Suna for being here. Cheers went up and Gaara, who was next to Naruto, bowed his head. The pair had been friends for years and Gaara's father was always happy to unload his children upon Odo to the point where they were going to be staying permanently. Naruto put a hand on his friend's shoulder. Ever since Jiraiya fixed the red-head seal he was able to sleep and manipulate the power of the one-tailed demon he possessed, much like Naruto was now able to do with the Kyuubi. I also wanted to inform you all that in the coming weeks we will be traveling to Konohagakure for the Chunin exams. A mixture of boos and cheers met this announcement. I know, but the daimyo has requested we show our skills. Therefore I've selected several teams. He put a hand on his nephew's shoulder. I am sure you all know that while in Konoha, I want the guards on their top form. Konoha is foolish to believe my nephew is the Kyuubi that he holds. Boos met this as Naruto bowed his head. Gaara put a hand on his friend's shoulder. They had a bond deeper than brotherhood as they understood one another in a way that no one else could. Team selections and placements will take place tomorrow and we'll begin our journey. While I'm gone, Lord Orochimaru, a voice called out, you can't leave. Orochimaru smiled as several others protested, putting himself in danger. I thank you all for the concern, but I cannot allow our genin, nor my family to return to a place that means them harm without being able to protect them. While I am gone, I will leave Zabuza in command. The former swordsman of the mist had been found in Wave, near death after a confrontation with Konoha ninja. His ward, Haku, had been near death as well, and it had taken a lot of Tsunade's skill to pull them both through. After saving their lives, the two joined up with the Sannin and Oto. Zabuza swore a blood oath to protect the Sannin and their family and do as they commanded to his dying breath. Haku, they found out, had been a year older than Naruto, posing as a boy and a hunter nin from Mist. Naruto looked around and found the pair, both nearby and protective even here in the hidden sound. Now, enough talk of serious matters. I do believe there is cake in presents. Orochimaru said with a smile as 6 ninja came out carrying a cake that was huge, and even then they were struggling with the multi-layered cake. Happy birthday, Naru, Orochimaru said, kneeling before his adopted nephew and hugging him. Thank you, uncle, Naruto said, not embarrassed like most kids his age would be at the affection shown before others. He loved it when his family hugged him. It made him feel safe, secure and loved. Your mother, the Baka, and I have a special gift for you, Orochimaru said as the other two Sannin approached. You didn't have to, Naruto began, but Tsunade placed a finger to his lips. You always say that, brat. We wish we could have given you so much more over the years. You gave me everything I'd ever need, Ka-san, Naruto said and was pulled into his mother's ample chest as she hugged him tightly. Gaki's the luckiest man on earth, Jiraiya muttered. Orochimaru snorted and agreed. He is a heartbreaker. The snake Sannin agreed. Both men chuckled, remembered the Kunoichi battle royal they'd spied several days back that involved several women of various ages. Anko had been there trying to beat it into their heads to stay away from her brother. Sadly arrayed against her were Tamari, formerly of Suna, who had liked the blonde since she first saw him during their original travels. Haku, who had taken a liking to the blonde who had checked on her during her time in the hospital after she'd be rescued, and he'd brought her flowers, food and would talk with her about her dreams of being a medic nin. Then there was Kin, a girl in Naruto's class, and Tayuya, who was Anko's age and one of Orochimaru's personal guard in the Sound 5. Jiraiya had watched the brawl from start to finish and told his teammates about how violent and possessive they all were. Anko had returned home an hour later limping and cursing about red-headed whores who bite, and stupid sand bitches that weren't good enough for her brother. She had ignored the adults who laughed as they saw her backside look like a pincushion, and they knew Haku and Kin were the cause, as some of the Senbon had bells and some were covered with a thin frost. Shaking themselves, they saw Tsunade had finally released the boy enough to breath as Shizune scolded her mentor for smothering Naruto-kun. As we were saying, Naru, Orochimaru said, looking the boy in the eye, we have a gift for you from the three of us. It's very special, and with the danger of the coming Chunin exams, we each would feel better knowing you have this. He snapped his fingers and Kabuto appeared with a scroll on a velvet pillow. The last Yakushi was loyal to Orochimaru and his family for taking him in after the fall of his last family. Naruto liked him, but didn't think he was worth his sister's attention, which resulted in several pranks that, while funny, had him dodging his sister's kunai collection, which now had climbed into 4 digits. Where the hell does she keep them? Many wondered, but Anko never told that her arrow pop had placed seals on her wrists where she stored them, and they would return to with but a thought. Happy birthday, Naruto-kun, Kabuto said with a smile. Thanks, Kabuto, and stay away from my sister, he added, causing the adults to smile and the silver-haired medic to blush. Anko bopped her brother on the back of his head. Stay out of it, brat, she muttered. Orochimaru knew this could dissolve into a very messy and bloody game again, so he pulled the attention back. The three of us have gotten you a very special contract, Naru-kun, Orochimaru said to the blonde, getting his attention. As you know, your mother, the Baka, and I each hold a summoning contract. Your mother with the slugs, the pervert with the toads, and I with the snakes, which your sister has signed as well. Naruto looked at his sister and smiled. He knew she had wanted to do that since they were little and she'd gotten to ride on Manda, who had dropped his guise of wanting offerings when the two children had found a very sensitive spot that no matter what he did he could never itch even when he shed, and they had scratched it making the giant serpent purr and stunned the three Sannin at seeing the snake melt under their little hands. This is your personal contract, Naruto. No one has signed it. It was made by the great sage Sanzo. Naruto looked up at this. He remembered the blonde monk who had passed through Oto with his three very strange friends. Naruto had liked Son Goku. Naruto's outfit was based off his. After studying your seal, he made you a contract with the foxes, not the kitsune like the Kyuubi, but with the foxes which are different. Orochimaru said, seeing the boy's eyes widen at first. So, you won't summon the Kyuubi. The foxes are like the toads and other summons you've met. Tsunade put a comforting hand on her adopted son's shoulder. Sanzo was very careful after he saw your nightmare. Naruto looked down. A nightmare demon had slipped into Oto and had latched onto the blonde, feasting on him for days. Sanzo and his companions had arrived and after dispelling the demon they had set up wards around the village and had stayed for a month after. Naruto was ashamed of his nightmares in which the Kyuubi had either broke freeing everyone he loved or cared about, or the worst one was Naruto had been possessed by the Kyuubi and had done the raping and pillaging himself. It had prompted the secondary seal from Jiraiya to ensure him a peaceful night after that, as Naruto had taken to becoming an insomniac, fearing that if he slept the Kyuubi would take over. It had been heartbreaking for the three Sannin and they assured him it couldn't happen. Thank you uncle, Ka-san, pervert. He said hugging each. Jiraiya made his protest of being called a simple pervert, but a head bop from Tsunade shut him up quickly. You remember the hand seals? Tsunade asked her son who nodded. He'd memorized them when he was younger and was going to copy his mother's summoning, but they'd stopped him saying he was too young and could seriously hurt himself if he summoned a creature beyond his chakra ability as it could drain him in one go and him. They didn't worry about him running out of chakra, but they thought he could damage his young coils if he did manage a summon at a young age. Then let's go. The smoke cleared and standing there with the other three boss summons was a beautiful female fox. The reddish-brown fur, white marks and black paws. Beautiful. Naruto breathed. The summon looked down and everyone would swear it smiled. Why thank you. The giant fox said. Naruto blushed. I am Naruto Uzumaki, my first summoner. Hello young master, she said. Gamabunta snorted. Jiraiya spoke up. Hey, Bunta, why don't you show me the respect she just showed the Gaki? Snort because you're a pervert. Gamabunta said to his summoner while Manda and Katsuyu chuckled. Can I ask your name? Naruto asked the giant fox. Izumi. You may call me Izumi. The giant fox said looking down fondly. I know uncle, the pervert and Ka-san have had to take tests to earn their contracts, Naruto began. Your test was taken the day you were born Naruto. You hold the Kyuubi, a demon fox at bay. Your strength has been proven. When Monk Sanzo contacted the spirit realm and asked for us to be your summon, me and all my children agreed. You've proved to us the kindness of your heart, the strength of your will. You are the fox summoner. Izumi said crouching down low so her face was close to Naruto. The teenager surprised everyone when he stepped forward and hugged the giant fox's muzzle. Thank you Izumi-sama. I will do my best to use you and your children with honor that you deserve. Demon foxes like the Kyuubi were different than summon foxes. Oto saw that right away as Naruto and his summon bonded. Tsunade stood back with tears in her eyes. A handkerchief appeared and she saw Jiraiya with a smile. Our Gaki's something special. The toad sage said with a soft grin as he watched as the fox stood with Naruto on her head. The fox bounded off. Naruto's shout of joy was heard by all. Yeah, he is. Tsunade said taking the piece of cloth and wipes her eyes. Orochimaru stood by them. We've each helped raise him. And when he's older, he looked at his fellow Sannin, I want him to be the next Otokage. The three watched as Naruto spent time bonding with his summon, their own standing by watching as well. Orochi. Tsunade said. The Otokage looked on as he watched Anko by Manda and smiled as he saw the big snake roll over and his niece scratch the Snake King, which purred like a kitten. What? He asked. What are we going to do about Konoha? Orochimaru sighed. I'm not sure. We have several options. None of them I like. Our main concern is get Naruto in and out of there safely along with everyone else. Means you to Orochi Tem. Jiraiya said. Ah, you care. Warms the of my heart. Orochimaru said with a smirk. Cold heart. Jiraiya said, crossing his arms. Yeah, but warm hands. He said with a grin. Behave both of you. Tsunade said, her eyes watching her boy. Orochi. Yes, Haim, he said, giving her his full attention. The Sannin are returning. Put me in charge of a team. Scratch that. I want Naruto's team. Orochimaru pouted then. I was going to be in charge of that team. Actually, I was. Jiraiya said. The three Sannin exchanged a look. Poker. Orochimaru offered with a grin. Same stakes. Jiraiya offered. Ah, hell no. Tsunade said as her teammates laughed. Off to the side, Shizune and a few others watched them. What a strange family. Shizune looked at Kabuto. Yeah, but then it works. Now about the attention you've given my niece. Kabuto swallowed as Shizune pulled out several Senbon needles with her other arm over his shoulders. I think we need to have a small discussion on what you will and won't do with my precious niece Kabuto-chan. Shizune said, and Kabuto knew better than anyone to correct Shizune on the form of address she'd just given him. The Sound Five stood silent as their task was set. Their loyalty was unquestioned. The leader Kimimaro had sworn blood allegiance to Tsunade the day she cured him of his sickness. Nothing will happen to your son, milady. The only way that will happen is if I am dead and buried. Konoha. Sarutobi sighed as he looked at the acceptances from numerous villages. He came upon one with a musical note. My students. You are the new village that we've heard so much about. The ones who accepted the Kage's children as he feared them. The ones who rescued Wave Country from the manipulations of crime lord Gato after Konoha's own ninja failed in that task. Sarutobi sighed. I miss you all. He marked it down on the gate passes and sighed. The new council members that picked up the vacant seats better not mess this up. Kami, I pray they don't mess this up. Time had come for the Chunin exams in Konoha. The Oto Nin were walking in their squads. Naruto, under his mother's watchful eye, was teamed with Gaara and Kin. The three had worked hard over the last few weeks, becoming a solid team, each covering the other's weaknesses. Temari, Haku and Ryu, another of Naruto's classmates, formed a team under Anko's command. His sister had demanded the two girls, saying, so I can keep a better eye on them and them away from my little brother. That was before she heard Kin had been placed on Naruto's and Gaara's team, causing her to swear. Jiraiya led the third Oto team, which consisted of Kankuro, Kabuto and Dosu, a man who never got a chance to try due to poor test skills as he was dyslexic, thus failing out all the time. Orochimaru with his personal guard were with them, along with Shizune, who was acting as his personal assistant. Kabuto was added as a genin to keep an eye on the teams better once they were in the field, and Kabuto and Dosu both agreed as they made Chunin the previous year. Temari had waited as she had wanted to team with Naruto, and Haku's medical training with Tsunade and Shizune had kept her from trying the year before as well. Doesn't seem fair, does it, Orochi Tem? Jiraiya said, walking next to his teammate. What doesn't? Orochimaru asked from beneath his straw hat. That we're only entering one true genin team, a second partial genin team, and a third team to protect them all. Do you trust Konoha to not try something? The Otokage asked. Jiraiya sighed. No, you're right. I doubt Sensei cleaned them all out. The last assassin led right back to the Konoha council. Both men were not pleased with the assassination attempts on the blonde they considered their son/nephew. I still like Suheim's answer for dealing with them. Orochimaru said as they continued to walk, the gates of Konoha coming into sight. Jiraiya winced. Popping their head like a grape and mailing the remains to Konoha with postage due is kinda, what am I saying, that is just like her. Both me smirked, then looked over their shoulders to see their teammate listening to the blonde boy next to her who was talking a mile a minute. I hear I was been sniffing around. Jiraiya said. Orochimaru nodded. I warned them off. I also got a warning about a mutual annoyance called Nadas was seen in Kiri not too long ago. Both men growled. They did not forget the man who years past tried to take the boy. You think he'll be here as well? Jiraiya asked. None of my spies have been able to track him. Halt. The gate guards appeared before the Odo group. State your names and purpose for entering Konoha. I am the Otokage from the Hidden Sound Village with my genin teams and their instructors and my personal guard. We are here for the Chunin exams. He handed the guard the invitation scroll. Orochimaru, the guard said. Lady Tsunade, Master Jiraiya, you're back. The guard said with a grin. Welcome home. No, Orochimaru said. Konoha isn't our home. It is a place that tried to our child the last time we were here. Now this time if that happens outside the exam it will be seen as an act of war. Tell that to the council. The snake Sannin took the passes and handed them to Shizune. Where will we be staying? The Red Oak. Orochimaru and his team walked past. Sir, the Hokage would like to speak with you and your companions. He had word waiting at the gate should you show up. We'll see him after we've checked in. Orochimaru said, cutting off the Chunin. He scowled as they passed people who bowed. It was the tightening of Tsunade's knuckles that told him the stupid villagers noticed Naruto and were still holding onto their vile and idiotic grudge. At ease Suheim, he said, slowing his pace so that the sound five surrounded him, Tsunade, Naruto and his teammates. The first idiot that tries anything, Tsunade began, will be dealt with by my personal guard. Orochimaru said. Hitaki. Orochimaru said, putting a hand on Tsunade's shoulder after her initial growl of greeting. What do you want? Tsunade said rudely. Is this him? The silver-haired Jonin asked, looking at Naruto. The three Sannin were on alert. They remembered what Sarutobi said 13 years ago about Kakashi's words and actions. None of your concern, Jiraiya said, putting a hand on Naruto's shoulders. The other Odo nin tensed. Kakashi's lone eye scanned over Naruto. He looks so much like Minato-sensei. He said. He should. He's his son. A voice said from the side. Rin. Naruto said and rushed to greet her. Rin. Kakashi said, surprised to see her. She'd vanished several years after the Sannin had left. Of course she hadn't spoken to him since that night 13 years ago. Hello Hitaki. She said, then walked up and hugged Naruto. Look at you Naruto. It's been 3 years since I passed through Odo. You've grown. I'm 13 Rin. He said and she ruffled his hair. Got a girlfriend yet runt? She asked, putting an arm over his shoulder, ignoring Kakashi who was looking at her in surprise and shock. No, and Anko Ne-chan keeps chasing them away. He said. How? Kakashi asked, looking at his former teammate. Where did you go? I thought you were on a mission. Trying to find out where she went. Rin stopped messing around with the blonde at her side and glared at him. As far as the people and ninja of Konoha know, I am dead. I died the day my teammate tried to our sensei's son. I died when my clan banished me when I couldn't meet their standards. She turned her back on her cycloptic former teammate. Sorry I haven't been through Odo lately. I was gathering reports for the old pervert. Rin said. Which one? Naruto asked with a cheeky grin. I'm not a pervert, Jiraiya said, then grinned as he rounded on the blonde youth. I'm a super pervert. Tsunade's fist drove him to the ground where he lay groaning. Stifle it, she said and smiled at Rin. We do need to get caught up, she said, and the younger woman nodded. I'll see you soon. I owe you all for saving me. The three Sannin, Shizune, Naruto and Anko knew what she meant. Flashback. I can't believe there are towns like this still around, Shizune said as they slipped down an alley. They were in a mining town near the southern border of Fire Country. The daimyos have tried, but they keep popping up. Between the mining, gambling and prostitution, there are also slave rings and other unsavory people. Jiraiya said, looking around to make sure no one is near. Naruto, Anko, stay close, no wandering off this time, Tsunade said as she too gazed at the various alcoves and dark shadows. They were entering the center of the town where there was a large gathering. What's going on here? Shizune wondered. Not CER, ah crap. Jiraiya said, putting a hand on Anko's and Naruto's shoulders and pulled them back. Slave auction. He hissed to the other Sannin. End flashback. They rescued me and 100 other people. I swore loyalty to them that day. Rin said, her eyes hardening as she looked at her former teammate. It was that mission the council sent me on, alone and underprepared. Rin, Kakashi looked uncertain as to what to say. You're blocking the way, Hatake. We need to check in. Orochimaru said. What are you doing here? I came to cheer on my teams. I know the cages usually don't arrive until the finals of the Chunin exams, but I am not letting Naruto or the others come here without me. Why? Kakashi asked in surprise. Simple, Hatake. We no longer trust Konoha. Now you can go and tell Sarutobi that the Otokage is here and will meet with him in an hour. Orochimaru turned and the others followed. 3 of Orochimaru's bodyguards stood watching the Konoha nin. They all wore cloaks. Leave, Kimimaro said, or we'll make you. Jirobo said, smacking his fist into his other hand. Sakin stood silent watching Kakashi, who finally nodded his head and vanished in a leaf shushin. Naruto sat on his bed and sighed. So that was my father's student. His voice was soft. Anko put a hand on her brother's shoulder. Tsunade Ka-san said we'd run into him. Naruto nodded. You going to be okay sharing with Kin-chan and Haku-chan? He asked. Anko growled. Better than their alternative. Which was? The blonde asked his sister. They wanted to share a room with you. Anko growled. Naruto smiled at his sister's protective nature. And you don't think I would like that? Anko bopped him on the head. You've been spending way too much time around Arrow Pop. She sat next to him. Hey, you be careful during the exam, alright? I don't want to lose my brother. Naruto put an arm around her shoulder. I'll be careful. I've got Gaara and Kin-chan on my team. The siblings sat in silence. So, you think Arrow Pop's already peeping? Naruto asked. Anko snorted. Knowing him, he took Kankuro with him as a lookout. Tamari knocked and entered. Hey Tamari-chan. Naruto said, ignoring his sister's scowl. Have either of you seen Gaara? She asked. Anko and Naruto shook their heads. Damn it. Want help finding him? Naruto asked, standing up. Please. You and your family are the only ones he listens to. The fan user grumped. He listens to you most of the time since his seal was fixed. Naruto said in defense of his friend. I know. Hell, he listens better than Kankuro. Tamari said, grabbing a pair of fans that were 3 feet long and slipped them across her back. I'll let the others know we're going to look for him. Anko said. Wait outside. The 2 blondes nodded as the snake user slipped away. Thanks, Naruto. You and your family have done so much for us. Naruto waved it off. Uncle Orochi saw how your father treated you and it was the best trade he ever made, getting rid of a couple of poor ninja for the 3 of you, who are not only skilled ninja, but because you were amongst my first friends. The pair waited outside the hotel and they saw several villagers looking at them, and when they saw Naruto, their scowls. They see me as the fox. Naruto said sadly. Like Suna saw Gaara as that overgrown sand rat. Tamari muttered. Hey, Naruto, Tamari said as they waited. What is it, Tamari-chan? Would you like to go out to eat tonight? You know, just the 2 of us. The fan user asked. Naruto didn't get to reply as Anko joined them and grabbed her brother by his arm and dragged him down the street. Come on, Windy. We need to find Raccoon Boy. Anko said, not letting go her brother's arm and dragging him off. Up and down streets they walked when they were in a back alley when a young boy ran into Naruto. Hey, watch where you're going. The brown-haired boy said, looking up at Naruto. Watch where I'm going, Naruto said with a smirk. You ran into me. No, I didn't. The boy said. Naruto sighed, reached down and picked the kid up by his collar and lifted him into the air just as several people came around the corner. One was a girl his age with pink hair. Then there were a boy and a girl this kid's age, and finally a guy wearing a pink shirt and black pants. Put him down. The pink-haired girl screeched. Just helping him up. Naruto said, putting the boy his feet. Yeah, that's right, you better apologize. The boy said. Konohamaru, the pink-haired girl said. And why is that? Naruto asked. Because he's the Hokage's grandson. The boy in the pink shirt said. Grandson. Yeah, that's right. Konohamaru said, puffing up his chest, a snicker on his face. That changed as Naruto pulled him up again by his shirt and held him up at eye level. I don't care if you were the Hokage's grandmother. You ran into me, you little snot. Perhaps I should pound some manners into you, since it's obvious this village has yet to learn any. Naruto's hand was hit by a stone, but he didn't let go of the kid identified as Konohamaru. He looked up to see a pair of Sharingan eyes and a duck butt hairstyle boy his age up in a branch. Let him go, or I'll make you. Naruto snorted. You can try, but my friend behind you would crush you before you manage to twitch. He saw the boy's confusion as he turned to see the darkened gaze of a redhead. Can't you stay out of trouble? The redhead asked. You know me, need to meet new people and make new enemies all at the same time. Naruto said to Gaara. They both were enjoying the look of shock on the raven-haired boy's face. We were looking for you. You really need to tell someone where you're going, especially since we're not at home. Naruto scolded the younger boy. Gaara didn't answer, but vanished in a sand shushin and reappeared next to Naruto. Naruto looked at the boy and rapped him on the forehead. Don't be so rude next time, squirt. Naruto said and put him back on his feet. Then with Gaara, Temari and Anko turned to go. Sasuke Uchiha leapt from the tree and landed in front of his teammates and next to the stunned Konohamaru. Hey, you, blondie. What's your name? The Oto group stopped and looked back. Who, me? Temari asked. No, the other blonde. I don't swing that way. Naruto said. Besides, it's bad manners to demand things without first introducing yourself. Don't care. Naruto said, cutting him off. We have more important things to do than play with a bunch of rude Konoha genin and children. Naruto was turning when he saw his way blocked by Kakashi Hatake. Sensei. The pink-haired girl yelled. The lone eye was on Naruto. Being rude yourself, Naruto. Kakashi said. The Oto contingent formed ranks around Naruto while Anko pulled out a pair of wicked-looking knives. Leave, she said. Kakashi looked at her, then at the knives, then over her head. I want to speak with Naruto. He said. Not happening. Anko said. Naruto heard from his mother and Rin about how Hatake thought he should beat hours after his father sealed the Kyuubi inside him. I don't have anything to say to you, Jonin Hatake. Naruto said. He flared his chakra. It was a signal him and his family developed when he and Anko was young and they were faced with a threat beyond their skills. Naruto knew Anko was skilled, but Hatake had the Sharingan from his dead teammate, and they were in Konoha. Naruto flared his chakra in the set pattern, and saw Kakashi's eye focus on him. Calm down, I don't mean you any harm. He said. Sorry, don't believe you. You were willing to me a few hours after I was born. And the last time I was in Konoha I was threatened with death again. Naruto said. Gaara next to him looked at the Cyclops and he popped the cork on his gourd. My friend has asked you to leave. He said low. Temari had pulled the fans from her back, but had yet to open them. Behind them they could hear the genin they'd met moving closer. Temari turned. Stay back, this doesn't concern you. She warned. That is our sensei. You fight him, you fight us. Sasuke said, and Temari saw his eyes. Crap. We have another Sharingan behind us, the one with the duck-style hairdo. Gaara turned his body so he could see both the Jonin before them and the genin coming closer. Stay back, he said. Kakashi-sensei, are you okay? The pink-haired girl asked. Everything is fine, Sakura. Kakashi said as he took another step forward. Stay back, Hatake, you've been warned. Anko said. He ignored her and continued to approach. He was nearly upon them when Kimimaro appeared. You were asked to stay away from them, Naruto, especially Hatake. The leader of the Sound 5 intoned. Kakashi was about to speak when Sasuke leapt towards the Oto genin. Sasuke, no. Too late, the last loyal Uchiha was caught in a fist made of sand. Gaara had turned to face the genin once Kimimaro had arrived. Konoha Anbu appeared seconds later. Let him go. A hawk-masked Anbu ordered. No. Gaara said. He attacked the heir of the Otokage, and the Jonin there was told to stay away, and ignored it. Kimimaro looked at the Konoha Anbu. So this is the famed Anbu Milord was talking about. I am not impressed. Kakashi looked at the group. Captain, stand down. This is all a misunderstanding. They have the Uchiha. The hawk said. Sasuke got too eager and attacked in a situation that he shouldn't have become involved in. I'm sure our Odo allies will release him. He said, looking at the red-headed boy. Naruto put a hand on Gaara's shoulder. Toss him. And that's what Gaara did. Sasuke landed several feet away. He rolled to a stop at Sakura's feet, who yelled about the treatment of her Sasuke-kun, and the Odo nin were lucky that he allowed them to catch him. We're heading back to our hotel now. Anko said. I'm afraid you and the demon will be detained. The hawk said. On what grounds? Anko asked. Attacking a Konoha ninja and disturbing the peace. Naruto snorted. If I was to disturb the peace, you would know it. Naru-Nisan, stow it. Anko hissed. I'm sorry you think this concerns any of you. But we are the ones being harassed. Be that as it may, the demon child is coming with us. Hawk said. I don't think so. The Anbu turned and froze, seeing Orochimaru and Tsunade standing there with the Hokage. Orochimaru looked at his former teacher. Nothing changes. He hasn't been here and yet they hate him. He looked at Tsunade, who walked past the Anbu, and stopped looking at her son. You just can't avoid getting in trouble. She said, ruffling his hair. Not my fault, Ka-san. Hitaki is persistent in talking with me and won't take no for an answer. Tsunade glared at the Konoha Jonin. I told you to stay away from him, Hitaki. He shrugged and looked at the boy. Kakashi, report to my office. Sarutobi ordered. Anbu, stand down, now. He roared the last part when it looked like they were going to refuse. Orochimaru, Tsunade, I am sorry about this. We will remain for the exams, old man. Tsunade said. But I am going to make one thing perfectly clear, an attack on Naruto will result in war. And trust me when I say he's made several allies for Oto. Orochimaru nodded. Suna, Iwa, Kiri all have allied with Oto. Kimimaro. Tsunade said, getting the Oto nin's attention. Thank you for being prompt in responding. He bowed his head. No need to thank me, Lady Tsunade. He then looked at Naruto and bowed to him. None shall harm him. Sarutobi looked at the Oto contingent. Suna, Oto, Kiri, Iwa, this has the potential to be a disaster, and the council is demanding that Orochimaru turn Naruto over to Konoha isn't helping matters. The morning of the Chunin exam came around and Kakashi Hitaki had been chased off the hotel property several times. He refused to state what he wanted, but he wanted to speak with Naruto alone. Like that's going to happen. Anko said. The only other commotion had been Anko finding Kin and Haku snuggled up that morning with Naruto. She had ignored Gaara and his teddy bear glaring at her for yelling, and she managed to avoid the shower of Senbon needles from the two girls before she got hold of them by their ears and dragged them out, the whole time lecturing, "Stay away from my brother." Naruto was nervous as they approached the academy. His mother was behind his team with Kimimaro. Both refused to allow the teams to wander alone after the incident several days back. Tsunade's rant about the stupid council was heard when a messenger had shown up with a scroll demanding Oto hand over Naruto. Sadly, Naruto heard the messenger was going to be on a liquid diet for the coming month and might be able to sit down within 2 months. Relax, brat. Tsunade saw his nervous energy. Konoha never changes its exam. The first part will be psychological, the second will be a survival, and the third round is a single elimination tournament. Sounds stupid. Naruto muttered. You thinking of waiting another 6 months and take the exam in Iowa? Tsunade asked, and Naruto could hear the hope in his mother's voice. Nope. Already put it off so Gaara and I could team with Kin-chan. Said girl blushed at her teammate's statement. You got your pipes? Tsunade asked. Yes, mom. Don't take that tone with me, young man. You have your survival gear sealed in your scrolls? She asked the three genin as they walked. Ahead them was Anko's team and behind them was Jiraiya's. Yes. The three said. Gaara, you have your instrument? Tsunade asked. Yes, Lady Tsunade, he said, and she saw the scroll on his hip. Kin, I have my flute and the medical packs you prepared for us back at Otogakure, Lady Tsunade. She said. You'd think you were taking this test, Suhaim. Jiraiya said, coming closer. I'm worried, she admitted. With the scroll from the council and Hitaki's insistence at speaking with Naruto. It will be fine, Jiraiya said. Hey brat, what arrow pop? Naruto asked. Don't call me that, Jiraiya said and sighed. You have it, right? Yeah, Naruto said. Good. Be careful in there, the Toad Sage said. He fell back to be near his team. Kabuto. He spoke lowly. Watch over them. I know Anko's got her team doing it as well, but with the Council of Fools making demands. You think they'll try something during the second part of the exam? The glasses teen asked. Yes. Also, keep your eyes out for Kakashi Hatake. He's been stalking Naruto since we got here. His team has the Uchiha orders. Jiraiya handed the scroll to Kabuto. Either seal the Sharingan, or eliminate him. As you and the Otokage command, Lord Jiraiya. Kabuto said, pushing his glasses up. Kankuro and Dosu nodded, understanding their orders as well. You're not fooling anyone. Drop the genjutsu and get out of the way. They heard entering the building. Naruto shook his head. What a dumb. What you say? The pink-haired girl turned around. I said your boyfriend is a dumb. The genjutsu was set up to get rid of weaker teams. Sasuke turned to see the teenagers they saw a couple days ago. Fight me, he demanded. Naruto and his team ignored him and walked past. Sasuke, pissed at being ignored, reached out to grab Naruto when another hand grabbed his wrist and squeezed hard. You shall not touch Naruto-sama, a teen said. He was wearing white clothes and a black trench coat. He had a red headband keeping his spiky brown hair out of his eyes. Ryu, don't waste your time on the Konoha trash, Tamari said. Save it for the second part of the exam. Ryo let Sasuke go with a snap, staggering the Uchiha back. The Konoha genin glared as the Oto teams moved up the stairs. Sasuke-kun, Sakura asked while their teammate stood there in shock. Above, a pair of eyes with bushy eyebrows looked at the Uchiha and made a decision. Naruto and Anko were at a nearby fishing village, having slipped away from their family who were busy getting Otogakure set up and running. The two children had even managed to slip away from their guards. The simple reason was they were tired of being watched. Ever since the episode with Kabuto's family, they had been heavily watched. Are you sure we're fine here? Anko asked. She was still rather subdued and quieter since that day. She did listen to her little brother a lot, which many found strange, yet the two would always back the other around and